All right, I am very excited to introduce our next speaker, and I love this topic, Misfits, Skill Sets, and Outcomes, oh my. I love the oh my at the end. So Joyce Poole will be presenting this session for us. 5 industries, 3 careers, decades of experience. Joyce Poole has learned a thing or two about how to build great teams and thrive in a customer-led, data-driven environment. Say that. In her role as Senior Director of CRM Marketing at LendingTree, she continues the journey of delivering results while leading with decisiveness, motivation, and empathy. Please please join me in welcoming Joyce.
Thank you. See that? See? Yep. All right, so bear with me because I can't see my notes. We're going to see the slides. So we all could be winging it together here. So I, as a marketing person speaking at a tech conference, because modern marketing is tech. We rely on tech. We would be dead in the water without tech. Oh, that's not going to give me builds, huh? That's interesting. Let's see. No? All right. This is going to really be interesting then. Say that again? Yeah, well, anyway, it's good. We have a lot of tech behind the scenes that drives marketing. So just think about what we do, right? At the highest level, we are picking up a consumer's interaction with our brand or our companies, whether that's a digital ad, they're coming into a store if you work for a company that has physical stores, they're interacting with an email. We're picking up all these signals, which means we need people to connect all the signals. And then we're deciding to act or not based on what they've done with our brand. So we need tech. We have tech partners. We rely on them to help us build and operate and manage all of these platforms. So we need you. All of you that are here today, all of you that are watching, we need tech folks. So I'm sure that others in, not just LendingTree, will tell you the same thing, right? So never look past those marketing roles or those marketing operations roles if you're tech people. That's my 2-minute story on tech. 3 careers, 5 industries. If you've looked at me, you know that I am not in my 30s, I am not in my 40s. I'm in my 50s, and it's fantastic. Anybody in 40s and 50s, don't be shy. Ebony was like, I'm not telling you how old I am. Too bad, girl, I'm going for it. I've had a lot of failures or attempts that didn't work, as some people say, but I've had a lot more successes. Time flies, right? Like, who knew I would be this old? And if you are following along, you see a salt shaker. I can be salty. My last name is Poole. That is my husband's name that I willingly and lovingly took on when we got married. But I come from a long line of people with these names. Infinite generations of Italians on both my mother and father's side. We are a colorful people. And so sometimes the language can be salty. If some salt shakes out, please forgive me. Some people say that salty language is a sign of creativity and intelligence. I love those people. Some people say that it's a sign of a limited vocabulary. I don't know who those people are. So we're going to blow right past them. All right, Misfits. So you've heard a lot today and maybe still will. The theme of today's conference is command, so how to command and lead. I really want to back up a bit though, because we are building teams. Feels like we're building them all the time in the pandemic as people move around. So if you are a first-time people leader building a team, or if you're building your umpteenth team in the last 2.5 years, a few things about team building. I'm so sorry that you can't see this slide, but these are 12 people that I spend my day with. Although I hate this terminology, this is my team. So for points of clarity today, we'll call them my team. They are intelligent and accomplished and kind. And other than having suspiciously similar headshots, PS work for a company whose photography team will take your headshots from time to time. We have very little else in common. We're a delightful band of misfits. Because I believe that diversity makes us a stronger world, and I believe that of my team. And the reason I say we don't have much more in common than that is because we really represent a vast number of cohorts. We are mothers and fathers and girl dads. We are Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. We are extroverts, we are HSPs. Anybody know what an HSP is in the audience? We'll come back to that, HSP. We really don't have very much in common, but it's that strength that makes us this delightful band of misfits and why we're so successful in what we do. So how did we get there, though? We had to build this merry band of misfits, right? So I wanted to share a couple of things with you because over the years, I have thrown out all the like niche ideas about do this when you're trying to find a person and do that when you're trying to find a person. So I've kind of condensed down exactly what I do. I don't know if it'll work for you. It's worked for me for several years now. Maybe it'll work for you too. First thing is, and let's hope we get a build. Here we go. You can't see that, and I'm sorry that you can't. It says, collaborate with your recruiting team. Number one, we have an awesome recruiting team. They are here. Some of them are here. If I'm going to hire for a job on my team, guess who writes the job description? I do. Now, you know, they don't give me free rein, maybe because of that salty language, but we do this together because they've never done the job. They don't know exactly what I need. And so we work together to make sure that we're writing a job description that is appropriate for the job, and of course is not biased in any way. So we work really closely with them to write the job description. Now, full disclosure, I used to know of a company that said, everybody of the same level across the enterprise is going to have the same job description. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that'll work. So I don't know if that ever worked, but that's not going to work. You, though, may not have the ability to write a job description or to participate, right? Your HR recruiting partners. I'm going to come back to that if you don't. I collect bad job descriptions because I think they're so fun. So bear with me. You're not going to be able to read this. I'm going to read it to you. This job says, looking for a growth ninja who can conceive strategies based on corporate initiatives, establish cross-functional synergies, design and evaluate multi-platform growth efforts, exercise a high level of acuity to understand complex issues, and must be able to function independently and thrive in a fast-paced environment. I don't know what this is. Is this a tech job? Is it a marketing job? Is it a gardener? Like, I don't know. It's growth. I don't know. So let's just have a few more minutes of fun before we move on. All right, let's see if I can. Here we go. Looking for a growth ninja. Y'all, I have so many feelings about bespoke job descriptions, but I'm going to skip it for now. Conceive strategies based on corporate initiatives. What, I just think about it? I have to conceive it? I have to birth these strategies? What on earth is this? I don't know what that is. Establish cross-functional synergies, read jargon. I mean, every job, got it. Design and evaluate multi-platform efforts. So, this is a room of tech people. Design is like the front end. Evaluate is like the back. Who's doing the middle? So I'm like, this job could be pretty easy, actually, right? Like, you don't have to do anything in the middle. You just design and then you evaluate. Exercise a high level of acuity to understand complex issues. So don't be dumb. I don't know. What is this? I don't know what this is. Okay. Must be able to function independently, like you're by yourself. In a fast-paced environment, we're batshit crazy, salty, sorry. Best description though, right? Don't do this. God help us, don't do this. Really bad. Write your own job description. Tell this person what they're applying for. If you can't, at some point, the field will be narrowed of these poor people who have applied for this job. You will ultimately get their resumes to review. You will see their name and their email address. Send them an email, or have your recruiting or HR firm send them an email, and maybe do this. Dear awesome applicant, looking forward to talking to you. Here's some additional information. You also can't read this, so I will. The ideal candidate will have successfully increased the customer base in a former role. Now I know what we're doing with this job, and can talk about the efforts and marketing channels used to do so, including those efforts that didn't work. This role will lead a team of 3, and we would be interested to learn about the size of teams that you have been part of and the pros and cons of each. So you haven't been able to write it, but at least you're giving this person something, right, that's coming in so they can frame their thoughts, you can frame yours, and you can really start to understand, is this applicant the right applicant for the job? So now they're going to come in for the interview. This is another thing that I do that has worked really well over the years. Admittedly, we don't always get the luxury of all of the people that I'm going to show you. I like it when 4 people interview a candidate, and those 4 people are not together, completely separate sessions. I like one person to focus on the skills. We have on our team 4 people that code. Well, anybody can say they code on a resume, but like we actually need to see that. So sometimes there's skills testing, right? We need somebody to do that. We need somebody to focus on leadership, not necessarily people leading. Maybe this job is not a people manager, right? But do you lead anything? Do you coach soccer? Did you plan your family reunion? You know, anything, just a little bit talk about what was something you were in charge of and how did it go, just to start learning a little bit about the person. Third is work style. Do you work better as a team or by yourself? I talked about HSPs. I have some HSPs in my life. HSP stands for highly sensitive people. Some people used to call these folks introverts. They're not introverts, but they like to be alone, think through a problem. The worst thing you can do is put an HSP in a desk combine situation, right? They want to think about the problem, and they want to come back and say, here's a suggestion, here's an idea, let's think of this. No answer is bad, right? It doesn't matter how the person likes to work. None of those answers are bad, but we really should kind of understand that to make sure that we can help that person be successful. Last is the other. My favorite question when interviewing people is, tell me something about you that's not on your resume. Like, do you golf every Saturday morning? Did you play sports in college? Like, whatever it is, because I believe that hiring good humans is often somewhat more important than hiring for someone that has a high degree of skill set. So we want to know a little bit about this person. The other person might be you if you're the hiring manager. Maybe you wait till the end. Maybe you've already had like an introductory phone call with this person. Maybe you wait till the end so you can say, hey, you've talked to others on the team, you've learned a little bit more about the job, do you have any questions? Again, we don't always get it, but super important to me over the years, is to have these 4 separate people interviewing. Lastly, there is a difference between good and nice. This is super important and not something I learned until much later in my career. A nice person might do what you or someone else asks of them, even if it's not the right thing to do, because they don't want to appear not nice. A good person will say, I don't think that's what we should do, and here's why. There's a difference. If you send a nice person into a meeting and others who that person does not normally work with says, I would like you to do blah, 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 they might say, okay. So be careful, good and nice are not the same. This last one is very specific to me, a pre-start warm-up. Everyone I showed you on that slide, me included, were hired in the pandemic. It's really hard to foster a spirit of team when everybody is everywhere. We gather before that person ever has their start date with us. We have dinner. Sometimes we have coffee. It just depends. We get together as a team because there's nothing worse than the first day of a new job, right? It's like the first day of school. Like you don't know anybody, you're nervous. So we just gather for some fun. Admittedly, sometimes the company has agreed to pay my expense account, and sometimes they haven't, so I do it on my own. Coffee's not expensive, y'all. You could do coffee. Even if your teams are all remote, you can have coffee together, right, via Zoom. If you maybe only have 2 people in a city, encourage them to get together. Do anything to help your team feel like a team. They'll really enjoy it, and it will serve you better in the long run. I hope that you can build a merry band of misfits as good as mine. All right, now on to skill sets. If you are the type of person that takes notes, do not feel compelled to write all of this down, because the next 2 sections I've printed on small cards, and some of my friends are going to help pass them out so you can have them when you go. Have you ever said this about someone, or has someone ever said this about you? Really good at their job, need to bone up on their soft skills. Agree, soft skills are just as important, right, today in the collaborative workspace, but what does that mean? As recently as last Thursday, there was an article published on LinkedIn that gave some really incredible data. Neither one of us are going to be able to read this, so let me get closer. Here we go. Hard skills can help you get a recruiter's attention, but soft skills can help you land the job. Fair. 89% of recruiters say that when a hire doesn't work out, it's usually because of a lack of soft skills. In hybrid and remote models, soft skills are just as important as technical knowledge. Effective communication and collaboration are vital to succeed in a virtual world. And technical skills constantly change, but soft skills will give you career durability. Love it, right? Can't deny any of those facts. But then guess what happens at the end of the article? It stops. Nobody says, like, here's a hint of how to help people build soft skills. They tell you what they are, but you have no tools. I was never given a tool on how to build soft skills either, and I've been building teams for, as you now know, lots of years. So I found a tool that works for me, and it may work for you, and I'm going to show you how I use it. It is not new. This is the concept of emotional intelligence, which is defined as the ability to understand, use, manage your own emotions in positive ways, to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. Also great, but there's a lot of them. 13 signs of high emotional intelligence. These are just the titles. Those of you that are in the room have the handouts. There's a little more information about them. The concept of emotional intelligence was really kind of born and brought to us in 1990 by some researchers. And in 1995, another researcher wrote a book. Now, I don't know about you, but when you read books written by researchers, whew. So in 2018, a real writer got a hold of it and wrote a book called EQ Applied. In EQ Applied are amazing examples of what we're going to talk about today. Again, 2018, not a new book, but if you haven't received it or if you find any value in this part of the presentation, I encourage you to buy it. So things like give helpful feedback, demonstrate empathy, show authenticity. If you're someone who needs to bone up on skill sets, you might be able to help them, I should say. If you're the manager, you might be able to help them do that. The way I do this on my team is I literally have these on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And when we do employee reviews, say, I'd like you to focus on these 2 for the next quarter. It's a really wonderful gift of self-reflection, too. I have to work on one, and I'll tell you mine here in a few seconds. But that way, there's a tool. So if you've got folks that you're really trying to help build these soft skills, you can point to something, you can talk a little bit about it, give them some examples, and help them succeed. That's what we're supposed to be doing as leaders, right? So imagine that you have an employee who's having emotional reactions, often out of proportion to the situation at hand. You might say to this person, I'd like you to focus on pause. Just pause. Don't immediately react when something happens. It'll save you from an embarrassing moment, and it'll stop you from making what they say is a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. This is mine. I don't often get crazy emotional about it, but I'm going to go back to that Italian thing. I have a very colorful thought bubble, and it's best that sometimes the thoughts stay in that bubble, so I'm pausing a lot. Next, maybe you have someone who's quickly becoming argumentative in group meetings, and not necessarily like 12-year-old playground argumentative, but just, you've been in meetings with those people. Maybe for that person you say, I'd like you to strive to control your thoughts. You don't have much control on how you feel when something happens, but you can have control on your reaction to it. Don't be a slave to your emotions. A couple more examples. You have someone who's blaming others, right? You say, we have to deliver this X. You did, well, it's not my fault, it's his fault, and it's her fault, and they didn't give me this, they didn't give me that. That might be true, but have you tried a little bit of empathy with those people? Why haven't they delivered to you what they need? Do you really understand what that other person is going through? So try to really hone in those skills, right, to help people understand. Lastly, this is a problem in the world. I've titled it here as Never Acknowledging Another's Work, but there is a lack of thank you in the world and in the workplace. Say thank you. Just say thank you. Acknowledge someone else's work. Praise others. That's how it's put in emotional intelligence. Tell someone they did a good job. We all want to hear we did a good job, right? We all want to know that someone acknowledged our work. It could be a small thing, it could be a big thing, but I would encourage you to please try to say thank you maybe twice a week. Just find something twice a week, send a little email, call somebody, tell them that something they did mattered, you saw it, you acknowledged it. Cool? Lastly, like all good things, emotional intelligence can have a dark side. Psychology Today published some research, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago that said psychopaths and narcissists have a very high level of EQ. So you have to protect yourself from others that might have EQ who are using it for evil versus good. I have run into some of those people in my career. If you have too, you don't need any sort of example of that. I hope that you don't. But by sharpening your own emotional intelligence will help you in the long run. You have these in your hand. Use it, copy it, do whatever you want to do. I don't take credit for it. It was written by the gentleman whose name is at the bottom there. So you have this great band of misfits. You're helping them with their soft skills, but they do stuff that still needs course corrected, right? We all have times where we've done something that someone needs to go, hey, that was crazy, you need to rein that in, right? But how do you give that feedback, especially if you're a first-time manager? You know, those early days when you're managing people, you're like, they're great, I hired them, I love them, they love me, it's fantastic. And then something goes wrong and they're like, oh my God, I have to like correct someone, how do I do that? This is an amazing tool from the Center for Creative Leadership, which happens to be in Greensboro, if any of you know them. They're very well known across the country, perhaps the world. They have a framework, I guess I'll call it, called Situation Behavior Impact. They say the only way to know what someone intended is to ask them, and the only way to let a person know their impact is to tell them. So this SBI framework, on the back of that piece you have, really helps you, if you've got to course correct someone, on how to frame those comments. Your HR partners will love you if you keep those comments very factual, very emotionless, right? Because we need to correct people, we don't need to harass them. So here's an example. The first thing you want to do is frame up the situation. Where exactly did this situation happen? You've got to give the person you're correcting a frame of reference. Then you want to talk about the behavior that you witnessed. This is not a, someone told me that you did X. If you have something going on your team, you might want to just, shadow that person for a while in meetings, for instance, and witness, because it's very important that you see this and you haven't used a third party to say, like, well, they told me that you did. The next is the impact, where you want to use I statements, and we'll get into that a little bit more, to say, how did this affect you, right? I saw, this, it's an I statement. And then the SBI is from the Center for Creative Leadership. Years ago, someone talked to me about putting the O in, what's the outcome? What do you want the behavior to change? How do you want to approach this moving forward? So, here you go, ready? If only I could read it. During your presentation in yesterday's meeting, give some frame of reference. Your sales calculations were incorrect. I witnessed it, I was there, I saw it. I felt embarrassed because the entire board was present and I'm worried that this has affected the reputation of the team. My expectation is that in the future, you will double check your calculations and be able to answer any questions with integrity. No emotion, no bias, fact. You did, this happened, here's what we want in future. So really good to be able to use if you are trying to course correct someone. Now you can also use this with your peers, right? So here's a fun one. During our weekly brainstorming session, you rolled your eyes at one of my ideas and quickly moved on to one of your ideas. That action was dismissive of my idea and shut down all further discussion. What did you intend by that? On that previous slide, there's a sentence down there that you can ask intent. What did you intend by that? And then be quiet, because that's a sentence, right? Let's hear. Why would you roll your eyes at an idea in a professional business setting? I don't understand that. My expectation is that in the future you'll listen to all ideas and be willing to have discussion and debate so that we can arrive at the best solution. It's a tough world out there, right? You're working with lots of people that are very different from you. It doesn't mean that you can't have a good conversation with a peer. Sometimes you have a good conversation with somebody above you that is not your direct manager. But our jobs are to be successful. And giving that person the benefit of the doubt, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, maybe they thought no one saw. It's good to have that two-way dialogue to make sure that you have a better working relationship moving forward. Cool? How fast did I talk? Pretty fast, not bad. Okay, I have one more super fast thing if you're willing to be a little bit salty for just a minute. Do I have time? Do I have 2 minutes? Okay. This was all about what you're going to do, people on your team, right? How you're going to do this. This next one's all about you. All right. Here we go. Bonus concept. This is a whole. Can we just all agree this is a whole for today? You probably can't even see it. It's a nice round oval. This is a square. Sometimes a square can be substituted for a whole. Just go with me. This is a hand signal for a square. Can you make it? Because this might be our secret hand signal from this point forward. Square. Hand signals. Square. This is a donkey, otherwise known as a don't say it. Salty. So if I say this, do you know these people? Y'all know these people. This is a mantra of mine. Do not work for these people. Stop it. Just stop it. You have to know your red line of who you will and you will not work for. I have two. I will not work for mean people. I will not work for vengeful people. Sometimes they come delightfully packaged in the same person. You must know who they are. We all have bills to pay, right? Stay if you must, but plan to leave. Your future self will thank you. Just know what your red line is. That's it. Thank you.